time, as I understand it, exists only in physical form, not in non-physical. Is that correct?
Well, time is certainly perceptual, and it's logical since you are focused here in a time-space reality that your measurement of your movement through time and your movement through space is valuable. In other words, it helps you in not only the continuity of your life experience, but it helps you in the expression of it. It helps you in the understanding of it, in the measurement of it, really in the satisfaction factor of it. Whenever we discuss time, we like to approach it in this way. The now is where all time exists. Wrap your thought around that just a little bit. Because what is past, if you are thinking about something that you remember happening in the past, you're still doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
And as you're anticipating something that will happen in the future, you're still doing it now. So everything is about now and about now focus. So the best way to approach time is, for example, this combination of beings has never been before. This combination of beings engaged in this conversation has never been before. And as we are having this discussion, the universe is literally becoming more. And so rather than thinking in terms of time, think in terms of it was less and then it was more, because there is a constant and steady evolution or expanding. And sometimes it's easier for you to get your thoughts around the continuing becoming than it is the measurement of the continuing becoming. The reason that people say things, such as the things that you said about time when you began with this segment, is because you usually, as humans, only exercise your ability to acknowledge through the format that you are looking at. And so the framework of this time and space is the way that you measure all things. But Source is looking at things differently. For example, as we were saying earlier, Source is not only aware of where you stand in terms of the manifestations that you've currently allowed, but Source is completely aware of the vibrational reality that is surrounding you right here and now also. And so if you can get manifestation out of the time conversation, then you can begin to understand what time is like for Source. In other words, we are rendezvoused here with you. You are in a time-space reality, and we are rendezvousing here with you. We are with you as you are moving through your time and space all of the time, even though humans would want to call us timeless and spaceless. But we cannot really be considered timeless or spaceless if we are focused with you in your time and space. So now, instead of using words like time and space, let's use words like focus. Let's talk about dreams where energy is focused and you actually have manifestations in your dream state that you individually are perceiving. Esther will say, I can't believe how much ground I covered in my dream last night. I was in so many different places with so many different people at so many different times. Well, of course, anyone looking on at her would not have seen her time traveling or space traveling. It's a perceptual thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so we like the continuity that you have in your time-space reality. And even though we like the continuity of your time-space reality, almost everything that we are talking about with you these days is to help you to blur those lines between those times and spaces so that you can begin to approach the time and space in which you are living from this more expanded point of view. We want you to include the whole of you. We want you to include what's vibrationally in your vortex, not only what has been manifested. In other words, we want you to begin to feel the wholeness of who you are, the vastness of who you are. So, in context of the things that we've been discussing so far on this voyage, this is the way the time factor dovetails in a very productive way for all of you. When you think in terms of alignment or resistance, and then you think in terms of specific and general, do you acknowledge that it is more logical that you would be in a aligned state in your more general discussion and in a more resistant state in your more detailed discussion? It's just sort of the way it is.
Yeah.
Now, as you begin doing this work where you're starting in the more aligned state and you're allowing the momentum to build so that you are now experiencing faster momentum in a state of pure alignment, your time and space is going to transform for you, because you will be standing in your time and space in complete alignment with the source within you in very fast momentum. Esther finds herself saying things such as, this day contained more meaningful moments than the last year that I've lived. Some days just feel like that. Some days of complete alignment. So what we're really talking about here mostly is focus. And we can't talk about focus without talking about vibration. And what we really want to talk about when we're talking about focused vibration is aligned focused vibration. And then that brings the word leverage into the conversation, because when you are aligned with source and focused in your time-space reality, now the leverage of source energy flowing through you causes the revelation, the realization of a time and space that's different than you ever saw it before. And now we'll come back to our original discussion with you. It's all perceptual, isn't it? And so
Yes.
People can be sharing the same space and the same time and having very different realizations. And what is the movable factor? Their alignment or their resistance to source. It's how much of who you really are you're allowing to be focused with you here in this moment. How much of your inner being, how much of that which you call source or God, how much of who you really are is focused here and now. And the more you tune to it and the more you feel for it, the better you feel, the more source is flowing through you. Don't you find that? The happier you are, the more tuned in to source energy, the more clarity that you feel. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Lots of conversation around that. It moved for all of you a little bit, though, didn't it?
Yes.
You've had experiences where you were so on point. Athletes call it in the zone. Have you had an experience where life just slows down for you? Jerry and Esther were running around a lake in Florida a few years ago. And Jerry was always so agile. Esther saw him stumble a time or two, and he was back on his feet so fast that it was almost like the fall hadn't taken place, because he just bounced back. And Esther always laughed, not quite like that for me. And so they're running around a lake, and there was a sidewalk that was turned up a little bit, and Esther's toe caught it. And as Esther lost her balance and began to fall, everything went into slow motion. And Jerry caught her fall 4 or 5 times on the way down. It was like he wrapped himself all around her as she was on her way down. And it was because they were in sync with source. They were really in alignment with well-being, that the time that they were perceiving accommodated all of that movement. You see what we're getting at? Things like this are happening to you all the time. In many cases, you don't realize it. But what you call time as you're watching it tick by on your clocks or your measurements is not the way that you think it is. Because when Source looks into the same segment of the same time, there is so much more room for realization and accomplishment and creation than someone who is looking at it from that more narrow, physical, human point of view. Lots of conversation about that. Did you like it?
Yes. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.